Well, hallelujah, sister, amen. Sister has found a light here, and she's seeing that the light is actually silver. It's made a good investment. If she bought it back 10 years ago, that is. Now, if you bought it back on April of 2011 or August of 2011, you made a piss poor investment so far, but, the only thing I could say to you guys that did that is to hang on even longer because the end is in sight for when you might get some gains on it, too. Um, one thing I looked at last year where I was wrong, but it was on a hair trigger. Really, nobody knew for sure. Like Netanyahu did want to go to attack Iran. If that event occurred, silver, oil, and gold would have been a lot higher in price. There would have been a major spike in the price. And nobody really knew for certain that that event would occur or not. But I'm going to say this. Coming up here, where I could see there's a little more impetus for war, which is going to greatly affect the price of oil, gold, and silver, is that military spending has been cut a lot. And you know what? You don't mess with the military-industrial complex machine. They don't like their revenue stream being cut. Just getting you hard, cold facts here because that's another reason that I'm kind of still staying bullish with the metals. I can know one thing today, though. I'm not liking the fact that the Dow is moving up so much and silver staying flat. To me, that's a bad sign for silver right now, too. But there's too many outside curveball events that could possibly happen that, I'm going to say this stuff has not made a good enough gain for me to dump some of it. And I'm saying it's got to hit record heights before I figure I want to dump some, or at least approach that $50 level. Now, a couple things did come up, and I was talking about war in Iran and stuff. That's something else, but this also happened. Chinese warship pointed its missile guidance system at a Japanese destroyer in an unmistakable show of aggression, per an announcement from Japanese Ministry of Defense. Now, this actually occurred twice, so it's very unmistakable. So, these type of things usually are very bullish for gold and oil especially. Actually, oil. But I'm going to say this. It's a postulate. It's an axiom. If oil takes off in a very, very hard bull run, that's usually when silver goes ballistic. Silver's going to take us by surprise. That's the problem with it. That's the problem. I almost sometimes think that they're just trying to fake everybody out and shake them out. But, like old girl here has seen a light, so she's staying with silver. Uh, I have to say this, though. Nobody really knows. I hear too many different conflicting opinions about everything. But I could just state this. If you're not in leverage, just hold. Just hold. Leverage is the one thing that can kill you at this time because it's just been sitting in a pattern where it's going up a hair, a little bit down, a little bit, and it could break out of that pattern at one point in time. That's usually what happens. At one point in time, when the stuff's been staying flat for a long period of time, all of a sudden silver starts getting up, and then people are scared. They're scared because they're thinking it's going too high. If you remember back in late 2010 when it went over $30, people were saying it was too high. It was too high back then. And yet it still continued to move upward. So it's going to take you by surprise, and that's the one reason I do say to sell in steps when you do sell and not be afraid to sell. I think when it does take off, a lot of people are going to be caught by surprise big time. So that's the only reason I have to say is do stick with it. Do stick with it. Now, President Obama signed into law a debt ceiling extension just yesterday that will extend U.S. borrowing capacity through mid-May. So that was one of the hot fights I was thinking about that was going to be coming up because that could be very bullish for gold if they can't make up their mind what's going to happen and if it's going to be blocked or whatever, just like happened in August of 2011. So this this major fight has been extended again, but now the line in the sand is going to be mid-May. Now, this may all coalesce at the same time. This debt ceiling extension, which is good through mid-May, that's about right for the war with Iran. If you're looking at the timetables, right? So, in a very short term, I can't really say for sure, but if I knew, I'd be acting on it. But I'm not sitting. I'm just sitting pat, and I'm not moving one way or the other. But this does kind of indicate to me war in the Middle East, that would be the perfect timetable, and the debt ceiling hitting at the same time. And oil prices going up would more, they could be blaming it on the war, where oil prices could be going up because the dollar's having a problem because they can't make up their mind about raising the debt ceiling past the next extension. So I have to say this: at one point in time, you're going to have drink the quench of making some serious profits on silver. But just like anything, if you even look back to the rare earth minerals, which actually aren't really all that super rare. They call them rare earth minerals. Some of them aren't that rare. But if you look back how long it took for there to be a big spike, and all of a sudden, I think it was in September of 2010, some of the stocks and everything like that, they rose sevenfold inside of a month. And this is the type of thing that's going to happen with, say, North American Palladium or some of the silver stocks. And that's when Eric Sprott might be dumping his stocks at that time. So the only thing is, you got to be patient like a cat and wait, because you will be drinking that water and you will be drinking that fiat currency. And believe me, fiat currency ain't going to go away to oblivion totally. But my plan is to actually sell some of the physical metals, so I'm probably making some serious gains. But I will not sell all of them, because I think, like I stated before, in 2017 or 2018 is probably going to be the final height for gold and silver. It's going to actually take quite a long time. But in between that time, we're going to have a series of maybe a couple of different heights. And I'm thinking in 2014, we're going to actually see triple-digit silver. 2017, 2018, we might see the crazy prices that some of the most bullish silver people were talking about. But for this year, I know David Morgan was talking about, he's got like a less high goal this year. He's talking about $40 silver. And from my perusal of various experts and actually just other things I read, $40 is pretty much what most of them are saying on average. And $40 silver actually is what's needed for the mines to be more profitable, because they're really not making that much money. But the one thing is, it can actually spike a lot higher outside events. And I keep thinking about this military-industrial machine. They're not going to want to lose money. And considering that so many cuts have been coming into play right now in the defense industry, and the private industry is not going to like that. Not at all. So I think there's a major impetus for war. Just look back at history. World War I was like this. World War II was like this. Vietnam War was like that. The same thing. There's big bucks in war. So let me just say this. There's a pretty good chance that all this can coalesce at the same time when the next debt ceiling extension runs out, which is mid-May. And maybe there will be a war with Iran. And also, it looks like a good time that China might challenge Japan for those islands that they want, that they claim that they're theirs, and they want to get the oil in that area. So a lot of stuff can happen at the same time. Global tensions will bring up the price of gold and oil, and silver will skyrocket. So it may just not be that far around the corner. Now, I got to have to say today, I personally don't like the way this is looking for the metals, because you got the Dow going up quite a bit and the metals are sitting pretty flat. But there's always something that can come out of the woods someplace that can change the situation very quickly. So silver is a crazy animal. They don't call it the devil's metal for nothing. And these metals are very volatile. That's why investors stay the hell away from them. There's no interest in them. There's something you got to hold for a while. So, but looking like what I thought might happen last year, looks like it may happen this year. The war with Iran. I talked about it from possibly being in the late spring of 2012. And actually, it almost did happen. Netanyahu got his way. It would have happened. It would have happened. It was very close. But this seems like it's probably all going to coalesce at the same time as the fight over the debt ceiling, which has been pushed over to mid-May. So, I do have to say the same thing over again. Just hold on, because at one point in time, during this race for, reaching to the top of some kind of good finances, you're going to get quenched with a lot of extra fiat dollars you thought you didn't have. And that, they will still buy stuff. They will still buy stuff because silver's going to get ahead of everything. There will be a panic into the metal. And just look at the old ancient principles. When there's a lot of tension in the Middle East and oil is going up and gold is going up and oil starts taking off like crazy, silver takes off like crazy. Like in 1979 when we had the peak in silver back then, that was the Iranian hostage crisis was going on. There's a lot of tensions in the Middle East. So it seems like the situation is ripe for it to happen. It'll happen unexpectedly, and I just have to say this again. You know, if you're looking at, say, if you're in stocks of rare earth minerals back in 2010, it looked like they weren't moving all summer, nothing going on. And all of a sudden, in September, they went up 7 times, a lot of them. A lot of them went up 7 times. So that's what's going to happen with silver. It's going to catch you by surprise. I wouldn't sell it right now. It could go down a little bit, but I would not sell it because you're playing a guessing game. If you're in leverage, that I don't like. But just hold on to the physical metals for now. But there will be a time to sell. And I think it's when everybody in the world is coming out and talking about silver that it's going to the moon and the dollar's going to oblivion. The dollar ain't going to go to oblivion right away. We might see some crazy moves in silver this year, too. Don't be afraid to sell because if it gets too far ahead of itself, it's going to pull back. But right now, it's sitting so damn flat, I don't want to do nothing. But just reminds me of what happened with rare earth metals stocks. They sat flat, it was boring as shit. And what happened? They took off like a rocket ship in September 2010. 7 times. Now, silver ain't going to get 7 times, but it can easily get twice. It can easily get twice. The right things come coalesce, and it may be. But like I said, people in the military probably all pissed off about, you know, I'm not saying the military, but people that are actually in the industries that feed the military are probably really pissed off that they're losing a lot. They're going to be losing a lot of revenue doing the budget cuts. And they have a major interest to push for war, too. This is usually what happens, how events happen. You get a lot of different people for a lot of different reasons want something. They want the same thing to happen, but it's for various different reasons. So, you know, in our case, it's going to look like silver's going to fly up if there's a lot of tensions in the Middle East, along with oil and gold. So this could happen. This could happen. And just like I said, them cutting the budgets gives them another reason for a war in the Middle East. So let's see.